Hello, everyone. This is Nicole Conway with Nicole Conway Speaks. Once again, I am here with my loving husband, Louis Conway Jr., and we're trying to come on once a week and discuss something pertaining to marriage, pertaining to something about us to help others to build their marriages up. So, first, I will say we're going to talk about how we met so we can get into our previous marriages and what works for us and what we learned from those previous marriages. So, we both met online on Tagged. My husband has this story he tells everybody else that's off the wall, but that's not what we're talking about tonight. So, we met online. It turned out that we went to rivalry schools in Austin, Texas. We never run into each other, lived in neighborhoods that were not too far from each other, but we learned how much we connected, but we were so connected in ways we didn't realize until after we got together. So I haven't been able to shake him since day one. And now we have been happily married for 4 years and together for five since we met online. Now, he may want to say something else about that. I'm sure he's going to come up with some embellished story, but I'm going to let him say what he has to
No, I think you covered that ground okay.
say. Thank God. Okay. So, going on further as far as our previous marriages, I have been married previously once, and I was married for 7 years. But I went into the marriage wanting to be married as opposed to the whole sanctity of what a marriage is and how much you have to give to it. I think I wanted more of the security more than anything. I was not trying to replace my children's father, but I wanted the security of being with one person. I didn't want to date anymore, and I just wanted to settle down. But I got so caught up into being married that I didn't learn. I learned a lot from the marriage, but I just got so caught up into it that I missed so many things. But it allowed me to be a stronger wife now from what I learned from the previous marriage. Now my husband's story is a little different, so I'm gonna let him tell.
Absolutely is different. Nicole is the first woman I ever married, and because she was the first. I don't know how it feels to going through a previous marriage because she's the first I've ever married, and um,
No.
she's the first I ever married that I've stayed married to this long.
Okay,
Um,
that's better.
so,
It's clear.
so
Like we're killing the purpose of being on here. So let's continue.
she's my fourth wife. The first and all together, I told her on our first anniversary that we've been together longer than my first two marriages put together. But as I have heard from wise men, is that oftentimes you are preparing the other person to be that wife or that husband for whoever they're supposed to be with. So uh, I take those lessons as blessings.
Okay, so I know
I
that.
mean,
Oh, go ahead.
no, because you kind of talked about what we learned from it. Sometimes I'm kind of sterile about that for obvious reasons. But for me, it was, tying it back to coming out of prison. The first person I married, I knew 6 months coming home from prison. She was my pen pal. My sister worked with her, and um, I ended up marrying her because I came home. When you come home from prison, this sounds strange, but you just want normalcy. You just want to be normal. And I thought, getting back into um, my community meant, settling down with one person, getting a job, being normal. And I thought being married was part of that normalizing process. So she definitely didn't go through any vetting other than being there for me when no one else was, right?
Yeah.
And which oftentimes gives people more ownership of space in our lives than it should, because when we're lonely, we value people who show up, and
Mhm.
those people who prey on, I don't say they prey on that, but they kind of count on that, knowing that otherwise they would not be an option. And so, you've heard me often say that I made some permanent decisions with temporary people. And I think part of that trauma of prison, part of that trauma of reentry, not being able to find housing, put my oldest kid's mother on my radar because she had housing. And I was trying to get out of my mama's house. Um, I left her house. I left my mama's house at 18, but when I came home from prison, I was forced to live at my mama's house as part of my parole conditions. And the only way I could get out of that is if I had my own address. So, yeah, low self esteem, not having access to employment, housing, stable employment definitely um, colored many of the decisions I made early on.
Right. I guess for me, mine was more so when I was trying to date and I was online. I never really found anybody that I connected with. Some people are only on there for one thing, and that's not what I was looking for. When my
Well, hold
husband,
up. So wait a minute now. Tell the truth now, because when we met, you telling folks we met on tag, that really ain't how we met. We met, is when we met, I was working at a strip club,
hmm
right? And so I had a little side gig that you was on, and you used to come visit me. And, I'm just saying, like, anyway, back to your
he was working at a strip club because that's the only place he could work because he was formerly incarcerated. Let's clear that up right now.
chocolate champagne.
Here we go. So that's what I was saying. I was hoping he wasn't going to say because it's not true, but he wants the kicks and the kiki with people when we go out on dates and stuff, and he wants to tell his story. But anyway, back to me. Um, while I was dating, I was looking for someone that when I finally got to a point of forgiving. So let's go back. When I got married, we were together for 7 years. Um, there was a lot of holes in our relationship. And because of that, he decided to leave. He left me once. We got back together. I forgave. And while he was gone, there was some infidelity. So, but because I believed in marriage, I wanted to make sure it worked. So I allowed him to come back. We worked hard on it, the whole nine, but he left again. And the last time he left, I said, that's it. If you're going to leave again and be able to come out in and out like that, this is not a revolving door. When he left, instead of trying to beg him back, I really made a list to evaluate myself to see where I had the fault into it, because it's easy to say, I fault the other person for what they did, but it was more so me trying to evaluate myself to make sure I was clear in the decision and why it had ended. So I made a list of the things that I could have improved and things that I could have done better in the marriage. And then I made a list of his, but I focused more on mine because I wanted to have ownership in the mistakes that I made in the marriage that went wrong. A couple months after that, I called him at work and I told him that I forgive you for leaving. And he was very surprised. But I told him, I said, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for myself so that when I do marry someone else later, if that was in my cards, that I was going to want to be clear in going into my new relationship and not bringing old baggage into my current situation. So I'm so glad that I did that because him leaving me, I didn't realize was a trigger for me because my father, my biological father, was not in my life like he was supposed to. He was not present. He didn't want to be a part of my life. He moved out of he moved to Hawaii away from me just so he couldn't stand up to his responsibilities. So I always felt like in a relationship that the person I was with was going to leave. And my ex-husband proved that. So I went into with one fear more than anything in this marriage that one day Lewis was going to leave. And I used to silently deal with that. And then one day I told him, I said, I'm afraid you're going to leave me. And he said, I'm not going anywhere, because we finally decided that we were going to commit to each other. So when I went to the dating site, I wasn't dating to just hook up with somebody. I was dating for marriage. And if I was going to meet somebody and get to know them, if they want to go in another direction, I let them know this is not why I'm here. So Lewis and I were on the same page with that same thing. It took me about 2 years after I divorced before I started dating. So I'll
And when
let.
she met me, she ain't, she her attitude a little different. She came at me zest spicy. You know how that commercial.
I did.
Don't know why it was spicy.
But I will say this: when I first met Lewis, he messaged me, and I was about to delete my page from Tag. And right when I went in to delete it, I saw I had a message from him, and he was very nice. He wasn't trying to, hey, little mama, how you doing? It was nothing like that. He was just genuine, and that's what pulled me into wanting to see who he was. And I went and looked at his pictures. I said, oh, he's cute. Let me see who this is. So we started talking online first. I didn't have a conversation with him on the phone. I wanted to make sure that he was worth that time, because if not, I was already deleting my page. He could be deleted with it. So we moved after about a week or two from online to start talking in person, not on person, on the phone. And that's what connected us. We saw that we had a lot of things that were in common, and we really connected in that. So here we are today.
Well, yeah, I can't argue any of that. I will give up some game for you guys that's doing this online dating. The one thing that I did subliminally
Mhm.
is use complete sentences. I didn't just hit her up with the letter U to replace the word you.
Oh my goodness. Or
I
K, the
didn't.
letter K. K.
I actually spoke in complete sentences and I used proper grammar and punctuation. And you'd be amazed at how many women are appreciative of a vocabulary, proper grammar, enunciation works well. But when you're texting someone, I think my approach to her, I didn't try to, she said, you know, I didn't try to holler at her like we were at a club. Plus, at that time, I worked in a strip club and I had been in the strip club for 10 years as a DJ. And anybody that knows a strip club, there was a series about strippers. So, right, anybody that's real, that relationship between the DJ and the dancer. And so because I worked in a strip club, I wasn't interested in, a certain type of a woman. And, whoever you are is what you attract.
Mhm.
So I tried to be what I wanted to attract.
And I'm so glad, because to me, what you were saying about using those slang and putting the letter U and the letter K, that's a big turnoff to me. Because my thing is, if you cannot communicate with me via messaging, what are you going to do when we're on the phone? And it kind of makes me, the light bulb goes off. Is he really literate? So I'm with Lewis. That's free
How
game.
they listen, how they text is how they talk. And if a cat can't put a period at the end of a sentence,
Yes.
I mean, that autocorrect be saving dudes, and it's still, cats still don't have enough sense to
But when you
craft a
get in
proper sentence.
person, you can tell. So I'm just saying.
She knew I was fake, as soon as I spoke, she already knew I was, she already knew I
No, I
was.
didn't. So I'm gonna shut him off for a second. So when we first started talking on the phone, I saw that he was very literate. I enjoyed our conversation. But the first things he told me were what his background was and where he worked. And that was very difficult for me at first to receive that. And he said, if you don't accept it, I understand because you won't be the first person that said no. So for me, I'm a very spiritual person and I prayed the whole time. I was having this conversation with him while he was telling me these things because I was like, how do you tell your friends and your family that you're dating somebody that works in the strip club and that has a background and I'm very non-judgmental, so it was hard. Like I was okay with it, but some of it was kind of like questionable.
And she ain't
And
had no friends since.
I do have friends. Don't let him do that. Um, there are some judgmental people that did leave, but that was their choice. But I had to do what was best for me, whether my family didn't approve or my friends didn't approve. I was being obedient to what I was hearing in my head, and it kept saying, God kept saying, keep going.
And I was just at a space in my life where I was tired of, pretending to be something I wasn't, right? I was tired of my past being something that I had to hide in order to make people feel comfortable. I just got to a space in my life where I had lost everything. I had lost it all. And when it got to a point to where um, I knew the best parts of me, but you had to get past the worst of me in
Mhm.
order for me to give you the best of me. And so, I put that out there first. Shit, you get past that, you love the rest. You know
And
what I
to
mean?
and to the ladies out there that are watching, if you are dating someone and they can be open and honest with you from the beginning, that is amazing. That they don't have to hide anything, and you don't have to find out later. Oh, they're secretly married to somebody else. After you've gotten your feelings all involved into that person and you've involved yourself too much. But one thing that I did notice before I met my husband, when I was dating on that site, I was dating this guy for a little while and he just kind of ghosted me after a while, and I didn't understand why. And I kept getting that same thing going on, that same um playback, should I say, with people that I was dating. And finally, I just asked him. I sent him a message and I said, "Why did you just disappear?" And he wouldn't respond at first. And then when I finally got in touch with him, he said, "I want to be honest with you." He said, "You are wife material, and I don't want to string you along into something that I'm not ready for." And for me, that was an eye opener because you can be on there and you're looking for somebody to be in a marriage with, or a serious relationship that will lead to marriage. And you meet people and they don't tell you, and they're really after just one thing. But I was glad that he was honest with me because it helped put things in perspective. It's easy to be on those sites at times when your expectations are higher, but you accept lower when you don't have to. And I think that's something that people have to be very careful of and be honest, because you can be behind a computer screen and you can become anybody you want to. I saw some people on there that had pictures of people that were not them. And then when you see them in person, it's like, who is this?
And with these
So,
filters and listen, this makeup,
yes.
man, makeup is the devil. Listen, look, and I think for me also, a couple of points I want to piggyback on that you touched on was when what enabled me to be on a page that I was on to attract her was that I had changed my, I was dating much younger women up until my wife. And that was, again, a carryover from prison because I did 8 years in prison. I felt like I was 10 years behind. And so that's kind of how I approached it. And everyone I dated was, 10 to 15 years under me. Um, but the second part of that is the wife thing, right? I never referred to my wife as my girlfriend until way after we were married. Um, we didn't um, refer to each other as boyfriend and girlfriend. Like there was, even back then, it was, before we got married, we referred to being together or, you know, that's my woman or, that's who I'm with, right? But the wife thing is she didn't become my wife when I married her. She showed up as a wife and became my wife, right? So she was already a wife. She was already carrying herself as a wife. She had already done the work to be a wife, which is why she repelled the dudes that did not want a wife, right? And so if you are attracting, who is going to touch some? If you are attracting dudes that don't want wives, it's because you are presenting yourself as someone that's not a wife.
Mm.
If you are repelling men who want a wife, right? It's because they don't want a wife, and you are a wife, right? And so walk like who you are, and you will attract who you are, is what my experience has been. Like, and it didn't happen overnight. Like, the person she met in 2014 was definitely not the same person that was sleeping on the floor of his office in
Mm.
2009. Definitely not the same person that was homeless in 2013, right? But the work that I did between 2009, 2013, and 2014 enabled me to be the person that attracted the wife in her, if that makes any sense.
That makes a lot of sense. But on the flip side, for women, that even if we say, I really want a serious relationship, um, I've noticed that some of the men on the websites will say, well, that's what I want too, but they do that in a way of manipulating women because they want to see how far they can go, and then once they get what they want, then they bounce. And I've talked to many women that have the same experience, and no matter what you put on there, because everybody is not going to be upfront and honest about what they want. You know, you can easily post something on there, but really that's not what you're there for. You can.
But that's why you have to be in a certain space, in a certain discernment, a certain spiritual space to where, like, I mean, that's the only way I can put it is that we both knew what we were.
Right.
Like, I didn't have to tell you I was serious about it. I didn't have to tell you what my intentions were. You knew by my actions. Um, like there was no guessing in that. If you have to guess, that's because it ain't what that is. Like, period. Like I didn't um you knew I loved you long before I said it by how I treated you.
Yes, I agree.
The people who knew about our relationship knew about how I felt about you before I posted it.
Mhm.
It wasn't posting it, didn't confirm it. It didn't like that. That was already in existence. So the life we lived before people knew about it, that you didn't have to guess about that. There's never been uh, a period I've tried not to put you in a position of having to guess of what that is.
Mhm. I can agree with that.
At
I
least
can. Uh,
not purposefully.
no, no, no. I totally agree with you. I'm just thinking about the situations that I've heard women say about being online and people presenting themselves in two different ways and saying one thing. But what I can say for us, after talking for a little while on the phone before we even met in person, we made it clear with each other. We were very upfront. I told him, I said, how old was I when we got together? 40, 46, 40, 45. 44, 45. And I told him, I said, I'm at an age in my life that I'm not just here just to date. If I'm going to date you, I want to date looking towards marriage. I don't want to just come into a relationship where we just hanging out. I mean, because
He
I'm
got
at,
me drunk, took me in the back of an alley, put a tattoo on me and a ring. And that's how I woke up.
anyway, as I was saying, that we both upfront with each other and we both said the same thing. Yes, that's the same thing I'm looking for. But the biggest factor in that is honesty, being honest. If that's what you want, if you don't want that, say that. If he would have said, well, I'm really not looking for that, then it was my option to say, well, I don't want to do this. Well, after that, we decided, well, we want to commit to trying to see how this relationship could go, and we deleted our pages, and we haven't turned those pages back on since. There's no reason to go back or to look back or figure out, well, I wonder if the grass is greener on the other side.
I couldn't even tell you what my on-screen name
I don't remember
was.
mine either.
I couldn't I told my wife the other night or day that I really feel for people that's going through this
Mhm.
COVID era and being single and dating. Like you really can't even, just because there's so many ways for you to lie and to, like, with all these filters. Like
Yes.
there's a filter I showed my wife on Snapchat that literally turned me into a woman. Like if you didn't know any better, I looked like my sister. Like hit
With
the beard
makeup,
and
hair, and
everything.
everything.
Like it was crazy. I'm like, man, can you imagine? Like, so anyway, I just feel um like it's a real tough time for people, and you're gonna have to lean into discernment, and you're gonna have to do a lot of like personal looking in before you go looking for.
I totally
That makes
agree.
sense.
So doing the work prior and making sure that that's something you want. Marriage is not for everybody. We were just talking to two people that we know that are dating, and it was before I knew that they weren't married. And I kept saying, "Oh, your husband this, your husband that," and she told me, she said, "I am not married, and I'm not ready to be married." She said, "I need to see this man in multiple seasons and not just right now." She said, "We haven't been dating for a year yet," and I said, "Well, do you think you want to get married?" And she said, I don't know yet. She said, that's not even on the table. She said, I need to know him more before I can just commit. And there was a big age difference between them, maybe 15 years between the two of them. And she was the younger. And she said, no, I'm just not ready. So when you can get to a place where you're honest with yourself, if that's something that you're not ready for and you can say that, then that's one thing. But if you're pretending to be somebody else and put a mask on and say, "Oh, I'm ready for marriage," and you're really not, and you string somebody along, especially somebody with children, they don't have time for that. So it's just being open and honest, setting solid boundaries of what you do want and what you don't want, and not just going for the okie doke. But if you're there for one particular reason, then that's what you do. But be open and honest about it. And I'm just glad that my husband and I were on the same page and we were honest about what we wanted. And we didn't carry baggage in from other relationships into our marriage because we had our own baggage. We had our own things that we had to deal with that we didn't mind taking the time out to unpack each other's luggage and say, you know what, let's work through this, because it's easy to just run and say, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's not to say that our marriage hasn't been challenged in many times and different ways and situations, but we both committed to each other for life that we're going to hang through this. We're going to work through whatever situation may come up. Nobody is perfect. Even the transition when you first start living together, people leaving underwear in the middle of the floor or not closing the cabinets. And yes, I'm throwing shade. Um, Leaving the cabinet doors open in the kitchen. It's like, are you done in here, or what's happening? So it's small things, but it's things that kind of get to you, especially when you have a certain way you've done stuff, and he's done at his house and I've done at mine, and you bring the two together, and it's like, I don't like that. I, I, I don't like that. And you try not to complain because you don't want to be the one that's like irritated and always complaining about everything that your mate is doing. Sometimes to just close the doors. I think I'm gonna start taking pictures and just send them a text and not say nothing. But you have to find ways where it's not becoming a thing of being argumentative. I mean, we have just now started calling each other over the last year or two boyfriend and girlfriend because we still want to be in a space where we can still date each other regardless of if we're married or not. We go on a date every single Friday, but since COVID, we gotta find a movie or cook dinner or go get something special and bring it back or pop
I
the
will
back.
throw shade, but I'm being the adult in this situation. Go ahead, I apologize.
Anyway, I have many more, but I just put those out there as far as transitioning to having a mutual two people living together is what I'm trying to say. So I commend those that are dating during COVID. It's beyond creative that you have to be during this time. You have to be more than just creative. You have to be safe because the other person could be sick and trying to do Zooms with them. And I just I tip my hat to you, but just be very careful. Um, be open and honest in communication. I was watching an interview on Steve Harvey, excuse me, and it was a couple, and it was this guy and this girl, this woman. They were both on Facebook, and he happened to see pictures of her, and he just kept liking all her pictures and stuff. And she was like, "Who is this guy?" So he inboxed her, and he said, "Oh no," she inboxed him and said, "I see you. I see that you've been liking all my pictures, and I just want to say thank you." He said, "And I see you too." So from there, they started talking and they saw that they both had a lot of things in common, and they just got to know each other, did a lot of talking. And he said what it did for him was it forced him to learn to communicate more with her because he couldn't see her all the time. And they had to become very creative. Well, they finally got together and they decided that they want to be, in a committed relationship. And he proposed to her on Steve Harvey. And he said, when and that's how me and my husband were, when we knew we were in this place where we wanted to be married and this was the person, we didn't wait forever. We were engaged. How long? We dated for a year, maybe less, before Lewis proposed because we already knew what we were doing. We were at an age where who has time for games? Like, we both been married before, we both have children, and why waste each other's time?
Yeah, going into it, it wasn't about a temporary um, being married single type situation. So like it was
Married single.
it was definitely was not that type of situation. So yeah, and I second and echo everything that my wife has already said. I think on the male side of it, again, um, I play chess, and because I play chess, I think I approach marriage a little bit different than I did previously. If you study chess, there's a couple of ways to play with or without your queen. And if you ever watch people play chess, some people sacrifice their queen early in the game and play with the other pieces, the knights and the bishops and the rooks, which is, for some people that's effective. And I realized for live in the
Sorry,
city.
we're in New York,
And
so
once I realized that in my previous relationships, I was playing that kind of chess, where that's why I I didn't necessarily value the person I was with because I knew the style of chess I was playing. I wasn't dependent on my queen to win. Right? I was so once I changed up and I began using the Queen's Gambit, I realized that I had to have, um, you know, uh, a strong queen game. Um, and that's a play on words, but it means it both ways. She
Mhm.
had to be a strong queen, and I had to know how to um, allow her leadership to not define me, but help us define what we could be.
Right. I totally agree. I know that I made plenty of mistakes in my past as far as my relationships are concerned. And it just, for me, it just prepared me for where we are now. Um, that's not to say that we haven't run into things that might have been something that happened before. And we thought, like when he was talking, I was thinking about when I first started dating Lewis, it was hard for me because I was a single parent for so many years and I was raising my children by myself, being independent and I can take my own trash out. Oh, I can hang up my own pictures. I can do all this. And being in a place where I was secure to say, you know what, I surrender. You can do all of it. That's your role. But not having that in my life for so long, it was hard. And my husband was kind of like, well, why do you feel that you have to do all that? I got you. But not realizing that my triggers were the abandonment. So thinking, well,
I didn't know that she was going to believe me. I'm joking.
anyway. So yes, being able to surrender. And that's the other thing, you always hear growing up, you have to completely submit to your husband and this, that, and the other. But when we were growing up and we would hear that, it was more so, I'm not committing to him. What you mean commit? But when you truly read into what committing is, if you have a strong person in your life that's a leader, then you don't mind following that person. You don't mind being okay with them saying, I got you, and not having to worry about it. My previous marriage, I caught myself when things seemed like the boat was about to sink. I would be the one trying to repair the hose. Sir, we need to take care of this. Well, we can wait a little longer. And I just wasn't used to working like that. I had to take care of things immediately because I had children relying on me. But now in this marriage, I don't have to do that. We communicate, baby, this needs to be taken care of. Okay, here, let's take care of it. And we move on. But I
Or do
also
something
think,
strange for a little change. Know how, and we can, know how, and everything
no,
else.
no, no. Anyway, we do have a great time. As you guys can see, this is all the time, all day. He's always cutting up. And so we go along, we lay in the bed laughing every night before we go to sleep because we're cutting up about
That's not
something.
true. Put a lot of people. People gonna think that don't be lying to people like that. We don't be laying in the bed laughing. That's only on TV. Now stop
And
it.
then we go to bed really late at night because he's either working or I'm up watching something. I'm not gonna lie. When I get in the bed, I'm sure our neighbors upstairs at 1 and 2 o'clock are very upset because we're in the bed and we're just giggling and laughing and cutting up. But I'm glad that my husband is not just that title, just my husband. He is my best friend. This is somebody I can talk to about any and everything. And there may be some things I don't want to hear, but guess what? He's not going to lie to me or deter me from being the best person that I can be. And I'm grateful for that.
Look, I told her I may lie on you. I may lie for you. I may even lie about you, but I ain't gonna lie to you.
He always has to have some kind of cliche that he uses, but yeah. So it's not always easy. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of patience, lots of patience. Okay. And you have to be willing to commit to the other person um, as one. Two people become one. You're not always going to agree. You're not always going to like each other, but I actually like him. I don't just love him. I like him, and that makes a difference. I know some people that are married just for almost like a business deal. We just cohabitating. This is what we do. We have children. We're gonna stay together till the kids are grown. And I'm glad that we don't have that type of situation. So what people see in social media about us is real. I mean, we don't try to sugarcoat it. It's nothing perfect. We still work on it, individually and together on a lot of things. So that's just my take. Husband.
You got my vote. The authenticity has been kind of our trademark. So, we're trying to get it right as we go along. I don't think we have perfected anything. I think each day is us learning how to become better.
Yes. Yes. And I know that we post some things on Facebook and on our social media about us not sharing all of our lives. But if we can't do anything but inspire one couple to get together or something positive to help them along the way, we're all for it. I mean, we are leading by example. We are not saying we are perfect in any form of fashion because we're not. We're learning
Don't
as
be
we
afraid
go.
to ask questions. If you have any comments, if there are subjects and topics that you want to hear about, or if you got feedback for us, or if you got questions, don't hesitate to leave a comment.
Please.
Uh, right. And so yeah, that's it.
So we are going to sign off. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. My husband has a channel as well,
Louis Conway Jr.
Louis Conway Jr. So please subscribe to both of our channels if you like this content. Leave us comments because we always are looking for more content to add as far as a couple is concerned. So please comment down below. All right, this is Nicole with Nicole Conway Speaks, and this is Louis
Louis
Conway
Conway
Jr.
Jr.
All right, thank you for your time. Bye.
Thank you.